All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to get started. I'm calling to order the Common Council of the City of Gladstone, May the 12th, 2015. It is now 6:33 p.m. Jolene, will you do the roll call, please?
Councilor Nelson?
Here.
Councilor Mercero?
Here.
Councilor Johnson?
Here.
Councilor Stickman?
Here.
Councilor McMahon?
Here.
Councilor Reisner?
Here.
Mayor Jacob Ellis?
Here. You all join me, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before business from the audience, just want to talk to the council about amending the agenda real quick and moving item number 11, the Brown and Caldwell agreement, in front of item number 10, which is the city administrator contract. We're all good with that, so we're going to make that move, that switch. Okay, moving down to business from the audience. Anyone wishing to speak at this time that filled out a card or did? Nothing. All right. Moving down to the consent agenda. We have two items, the approval of the project list and the payment of April claims. Item number 1 was taken off the consent agenda, so we just have 2 on there. So,
make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. All right, the motion was made by Councilor Sickman and seconded by Councilor Nelson. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, we have nothing under correspondence. We're moving down to the regular agenda now. Item number 4, which is the Planning Commission vacancy. Pete, you want to start, or?
Sure. Mr. Mayor, we have 1 vacancy and 2 applicants. Mr. Daniel Millington and Linda Neese are the applicants.
Anybody have anything to say? Any discussion on these 2 applicants? Nothing? Are we going to take the vote of the 2 then? Jolene, do you want to do a...
How do you want to do it, on the board?
A tally on the board like you do, or no?
Why don't we just go down, since there's only 2, it should be pretty easy.
Okay.
All right?
I select Millington, Dan Millington.
Councilor Mercero?
Linda Neese.
Councilor Johnson?
Linda Neese.
Councilor Stickman?
Daniel Millington.
Councilor McMahon?
Linda Neese.
Councilor Reisner?
Linda Neese.
Mayor Jacob Ellis?
Linda Neese.
That's 5 for Linda Neese, 2 for Millington. So it will be Linda Neese.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, item number 5, the Reinerson Pond project.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have John Runyon from Reinerson Natural Area LLC and Cascade. He's here to provide an update to City Council regarding the Reinerson Pond project. As Council knows, it's been a long time in the making. We're getting to the point now where we're starting to look at construction. So with that, I'll let John address Council.
For the record, John Runyon. I'm consultant with Cascade Environmental Group based out of Portland. Just to provide you with a little, I guess, context and history for the project first, and then the current status. I know that there's various levels of understanding about the project components. Ryerson Creek obviously empties into the Willamette River in Meldrum Bar Park, in the northern part of the park. In the 1990s, 1997, there was a dam constructed on Lower Ryerson Creek, ironically enough, as a wetland mitigation project for some development that was happening within the city of Gladstone. So they built a dam, they created a ponded area back in the 90s. About 5 years ago, I started to work with the the city, Solve, the Rynearson Coalition, and the adjacent neighbors around Lower Rynearson Creek and the pond area, looking at the issues on the pond. And they're numerous. There's water quality problems there because water heats up. There are fish entrapment issues in the pond because during flood times, baby Chinook and baby steelhead get into the pond and they're trapped there because they can't exit, and they're eaten by herons and that sort of thing. So obviously they're endangered fish. That presents the city both with water quality issues and with Endangered Species Act issues. Working with all of the stakeholders and ultimately working with the city and the adjacent Property Owners Association, we were able to develop a common approach, a set of guidelines for restoring the area that included modifying the dam, leaving some open water, but significantly changing the habitat upstream of the pond so that you have, again, a stream there, you have cold water coming in, etc. But how do you implement that? How do you fund that? And working with, again, the city and the various stakeholders, in particular the Property Owners Association, we began to look at the Portland Harbor process as a potential funding source. Now, Portland Harbor, as you know, is a Superfund site, and there's two components to the Superfund. The first component is cleanup. Clean up the mess in the industrial harbor. The second component is restoration, restoring habitats that had been destroyed through the various industrial activities in the harbor. Those restoration activities need to occur in the central Portland Harbor area, but can also occur on the Willamette River up to Willamette Falls and then down to its confluence with the Willamette. So we proposed Rynearson Natural Area as a potential project to the Portland Harbor trustees. They were very enthusiastic about it as a project because it meets all the criteria in terms of improving floodplain habitat, improving habitat for juvenile salmon. So my firm, working in collaboration with a firm that provides capital for just these kinds of projects, Falling Springs, developed an agreement with the city to move forward as formal project developers on the project, which means that essentially as developers we are moving forward with all of the feasibility studies, moving forward with the design, the permitting, and then the construction, with the idea that ultimately credits will be sold to the potentially responsible parties, which is the term they're using for the polluters in the Portland Harbor and the kind of compensation that they have to provide for their liabilities. So that process has moved forward. The city has generously agreed to contribute to that to the tune of $44,000 for some of the feasibility studies. In return, and this is a true partnership with the city, there will be profit sharing over time as the credits are sold, which is as I will explain, a fairly long-term process. So as project developer, as I said, we've worked through the basic feasibility stage. We've completed that. We've not uncovered any issues that are deal breakers, and now we've developed a preliminary design for the site, and all of the permits are ready. We potentially could construct this summer. What we're doing right now is looking at the financial situation because obviously we have not, or not obviously to you, we have not sold any credits at this point. The market's still developing within Portland Harbor. We're confident that credits will be sold over time, but obviously we have to look at the funding situation because we've already expended considerable funds on the feasibility studies and the design element. So we're looking at the timing. If it doesn't happen this summer, it will certainly happen next summer with construction. And essentially what that construction would entail is modifying the dam so that it's much lower, and putting in essentially a stream channel that would go up to the dam, allowing fish to come in and out of the stream and the pond area, severely reducing the pond area to provide habitat both for fish, but importantly for native turtles. There's a regionally important painted turtle population there, one of the most robust populations in the entire metro area, and so turtles are a key consideration through that. So construction is going to occur either this summer or next summer. After that, there's a post-construction performance monitoring period that lasts for 10 years. We have already gone in and done pre-construction monitoring, looking at everything from bugs in the creek to water quality to the critters that are using the area. If you're interested, I can provide you with all kinds of photos of everything from blue herons to coyotes to beaver that we've caught on cameras out there, etc. Because it's a mitigation project, very, very rigorous in terms of the approach. So there's pre-project monitoring, and then post-construction, there's a 10-year period of monitoring, and that monitoring is to look at everything from obviously the response of wildlife populations, but the response of fish out there, but also very rigorous performance standards. So for example, weedy species have to be kept down to a minimum. The habitat has to show that it is performing well for salmon as well as other wildlife. So a very, very rigorous process. You're essentially getting a world-class restoration project there at the mouth of Rynearson Creek. After that 10-year period, then there will be a permanent steward that will essentially oversee the site to assure that ongoing into perpetuity that it's functioning as a true restoration area. Overall, the area is about 34 acres. Of that, the city owns about 90% of the property. The other remaining portion is primarily the homeowners association, which we have an agreement also with them, so it's a true partnership there, and with one other landowner. So the homeowners association, one other landowner, own about 10% of the area. The other 90% is the city. You are on record as with a policy that it will be maintained as a natural area, with the primary purpose being fish and wildlife habitat and fish and wildlife populations. The only human access into the site will be the existing access that is there right now, formally the trail that goes in, and there are 2 viewing platforms that are there. I have to say that this has been a great partnership working with the city and the Property Owners Association. We meet monthly to talk about project updates, to get input on the design. It's been a truly collaborative process, and I really want to cite the help of Pete Boyce and everything he's done to help guide the process. We also have Bill Dugan here from the Homeowners Association, and of course former Councilor Hal Bush has been really key spearheading this, and he continues to be the city's liaison for the process. So those are the basic components. One of the items that we are going to integrate into the project is, and I noted that in my contribution to your packet, is that we have lightly contaminated sediments that have accumulated mainly from past stormwater inputs, that sort of thing, into Rynearson Creek. They've accumulated in the pond area, and the Army Corps of Engineers and the Department of Environmental Quality, which evaluates those sorts of things, considers it to be lightly contaminated, not suitable for placement anywhere where it might be in contact with aquatic life. So we can't place it in the floodplain where the project is, because we're going to have to do quite a bit of excavation out there. So what we're proposing to do, and we've been working with Pete and Scott Tabor and other city staff on this, is to place it up in the upper part of the park area. If you're familiar with the park, you come in, and before you really drop into the park, there's 2 kind of broad grassy areas, both on the north and the south side of the park entrance there. We're proposing to place some of the sediments there, and then place clean fill and grass on top of it. Just do it in a way that's actually improving the maintenance of the site, because now it's not as easy to mow as we're proposing that it would be after that. And it does not pose any issues according to DEQ. We have total concurrence from them. There's absolutely no health threat, that sort of thing. But just wanted you to be aware that that's one of the components of the project when we construct. So that's where we are. To date, as project developers, we've spent close to $500,000 on all of the various studies, all of the paperwork that's required, working with the trustees. You can imagine doing something like this, what is involved in the design and the permitting process. We will have all the permits submitted. We're submitting them for a 2-year period in case we don't construct this summer. So we definitely have the option of construction next summer, which is the plan if we do not go through with it this summer. So with that, any questions that you have?
What other options are there for dumping that dirt besides in Meldrum Bar Park?
Hauling it a long ways away for someone else that wants it as fill.
Okay.
Yeah, so those would be options that we looked at.
How far?
It would depend on who would want them. It could be someone that's close. It could be further away. We didn't evaluate that because after talking through it with city staff, they saw it as a win-win to place it up in the upper part of the park.
How high is it going to go? I mean, is it going to go higher?
We're looking at 2 to 3 feet in spots. We're also talking about planting trees along the edge to mitigate any kind of view issues. So there'd be trees planted along the adjacent neighbor properties.
We don't have a master plan for our parks yet.
I'm well aware of that, yes.
It seems like Meldrum Bar is the catch basin for absolutely everything.
Yeah, I understand.
So do you think that will happen this summer, or will it be next summer that you'll be doing that?
It will happen during construction. As I said, we're looking at options. We're not sure if it's going to happen this summer or next summer, but it would all be integrated in with the construction whenever we decide that we're going to, excavate the channels, the dam, etc.
Is that something that will go to Planning Commission or City Council, or is it already approved?
We are, as part of the permitting process, we are going to go to the Planning Commission.
Okay.
Thank you. Parks Board, I'm sure, would be interested if you have plans on leaving 2 or 3 feet of dirt. That I'm sure that they would be interested in saying, because I'm real concerned about that. We had several feet dumped up on over some property several years ago. So we need to do some more talking, in my opinion.
And we're fine talking through that. We're doing all the due diligence there. We're doing geotechnical work to make sure it's okay. As I said, we've consulted with Corps and DEQ, which have given us the green light to move forward with it. So we're perfectly fine with answering any questions, any issues around that.
Any ballpark as to what it would cost if it had to be hauled off, what it would cost?
It's expensive. That's all I can say,
okay.
To do that. So, and that's why we were looking for a win-win with the city there.
Sure.
As an approach.
Probably be a good idea to have some options and bring some options forward
Sure.
on that. Yeah.
Sure, we can certainly look at some options.
Yep, thank you.
Absolutely.
So obviously that's going to be enough material that it'll require a grade and fill permit. Is that
the entire site's going to require a grade fill permit. It's going to require a no net rise analysis. We're completing all of those components. And as I said, we are going to go before the Planning Commission. Okay.
The other question, this is just an awesome project, by the way.
Thank you.
And it also looks like it has a lot of educational portion to it that could be used for years.
Yep.
Which brings me to the question of there are an awful lot of areas that are marked as plant to discourage public access. Can you explain that to me?
Well, as I said, the city is on record having this as a natural area to the benefit of fish and wildlife. Working in the process with the Portland Harbor trustees, their criteria is that this is benefiting fish and wildlife and water quality. Discouraging human access is to discourage folks going off the trail system that will be there, wandering around on their own. If you go out there now, there are a lot of unofficial trails on the site that, quite frankly, in spots, destroy habitat, good habitat, particularly close to the pond and the stream. What we're proposing to do is control that access, what you're talking about in terms of educational activities, there's nothing that would prevent for educational activities going off the trail system as long as they're trying to doing it in a way that minimizes any kind of impacts out there. And in fact, what the Portland Harbor trustees are looking for, and I think we are as project developers, and I think all the parties involved agree, that you want to have community education, you want to have community events and buy-in out there. I was out there with Solve today, actually talking about another project, and if you know Solve, they're all about planting trees and removing weeds and that sort of thing. They would be happy to do educational events, sponsor volunteers who could go out there. Obviously, we have performance standards that we need to adhere to, but that does not preclude having volunteers working on the site, removing ivy. That's going to be an ongoing issue, that sort of thing. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, I was just kind of, I'm thinking of two things, is the educational aspect of just one path into a small viewing area.
Right.
It's going to be difficult for like classrooms to come out and see this. And the other portion of it, you mentioned that there's several unsanctioned trails throughout there. Those probably will continue.
We understand that.
And so I would think that if we could have a better designated trail system through it for people to have access without hurting the fish and wildlife habitat, it might be a little better way to control it by allowing the access in a controlled manner than trying to prohibit it.
That is something that we considered with city staff as we went through that, and certainly we could modify the plans. The current plans are, you've got that one trail going out, you have the kiosk areas. I would say, my personal opinion, after guiding a number of tours out there, that it is adequate for educational activities within that, because you can have fairly large groups that can go out there. Other trail systems could be built, but there'd be a cost to that, both in terms of financial resources, but also a cost because it reduces the habitat values that the Portland Harbor trustees are looking at. So I see it as we're trying to be consistent with the city's policy that it's going to be maintained as a natural area to benefit fish and wildlife, with a compromise that, you will have one trail in there. I'm sure that out of this is going to come interpretive signage, all those sorts of things, too.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Well, I guess the direction that I'm hearing is look at options for the sediment and continue to evaluate that in a little more detail. Okay.
On that dirt, I have to, some opinion could be that dirt could be really a problem. Okay. But in other ways, if it's thought deep enough, maybe there's some good things to do with it. And so I would suggest working towards a win-win that works for everybody and does help the park. At this point, I'm kind of thinking, I'm not sure, but
right.
There may be some ways. In the garden. In the garden.
So who's responsible for the dirt, the contaminated dirt, and then so is that something that you guys have picked up as far as being responsible for doing something with it?
I would have to consult with our attorney on that. Again, DEQ says that it does not present a human health hazard. We're trying to do due diligence around slope stability there because we see that as a potential issue. So far, we're not seeing anything there. So we're looking at all of those potential hazards that could be presented by that and really not seeing any at this point.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Hal, for your continued involvement in this. Appreciate it.
Working with Hal.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 7. We are struck 6 from the agenda, so we're moving on to number 7, grant application summary.
We're striking number 6, right?
Yes.
Number 6 has been stricken.
I
so
can
is
talk
number
on
1.
that on 6 if you'd like.
removed from agenda? I'm kidding. Nothing. Hello, councilors and mayor. Tammy Stemple, 6960 Winfield Court. I'm here to give you guys an update on the grants that we've been working on, we as in myself and city staff. There's 4 that we're in the process of completing right now. Number 1 is a Transportation Growth Management grant through ODOT for the City of Gladstone TSP, the Transportation System Plan. I mentioned this to you all a couple of months ago. There was an opportunity for us to have part of that plan paid for since it's required. We're asking for approximately $150,000. Gail Curtis with ODOT is the liaison that's working with us. There's a 12% match, which would be $18,000, but that's in either cash or in-kind donation, and staff time is allowed as in-kind donation as well as volunteer time, so it doesn't mean that we will have to pay $18,000. The full application is due June 12th. It's going to be awarded in August. The funding, they said, won't be available historically until December. However, it can be fast-tracked. I let them know that we do not have a TSP plan currently and that we are needing to move forward. So there's a possibility we could get that money sooner. There's a high potential for us getting this grant because we do not have a TSP currently, and we don't ask for grant funding. So we're kind of at the top of their list. Gail's going to be working with me and whoever else wants to help to complete the grant application. Any questions on that one? I have included just the pre-application letter that was submitted. Obviously, the application hasn't been completed yet. Any questions? Okay. The second is another Transportation Growth Management grant through ODOT, and this is going to be Portland Avenue Refinement Plan. Again, Gail Curtis is going to be our liaison. We're applying for $175,000. The match again is 12%, which would be $21,000. Again, it's cash or in-kind donation. Same timeline, June 12th. Applications due. This can be fast-tracked as well, but it may not need to be. This is to cover the development of zoning regulations, design standards, refine cross-section plans, basically taking the current Portland Avenue redevelopment plan and refining it so that we have something that's really feasible that we can work towards, setting milestones to see what their next steps are. Any questions on that one?
Refining, will that
Refining.
allow us to make some changes
Yes.
to it as
Yes.
well as just refining what's already there?
Yes, because we realized that was very general, and that this is going to be bringing it in to actually meet our vision and come up with a more defined set of plans. Anything else on that one? Okay, the third one is Oregon Transportation and Growth Management Code Assistance Program. And this is through the State of Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development. This one is we're calling it the Gladstone Code Audit and Smart Growth Assessment Recommendations. Laura Buell is our contact. The application amount, it's an open-ended as needed. This has been offered to us as a free service, which normally we would go for a grant that's probably $150,000 to $200,000 to help us with this. And being on Planning Commission, I look at this one and I've got butterflies in my stomach because this means that they're going to be doing a lot of the work that we were going to be doing and holding our hands and making sure that we do it right. It can be started right away. This is an in-depth audit designed around what our visions for the community are. Laura's going to work with Gail Curtis with ODOT to make sure that we don't have any cross purposes going with what this offers and what the grants are that we have applied for or are applying for. Making sure that the Portland Avenue Refinement Plan kind of meshes with this one. And also, this is going to be focused on a smart growth assessment, which is the way the state and for those that were on Planning Commission, what the county and Clay really push for. And as a planning commissioner, that is kind of the direction that we wanted to go in our code assessment. So I don't know what you guys think about that, but I think that having the state of Oregon help us do this is a great idea, especially since it's free.
For sure.
Questions?
Free is a good price.
I think free and professional free is an even better deal. Any questions? All right, the last one is a community planning and development planning grant. Gladstone Downtown Revitalization Plan, and this is through Metro. I wasn't a part of this application, but the mayor and Jolene may want to kick in a little bit here. The application amount is $150,000. The match on this is 10%, which would be about $15,000. And again, it's a cash or in-kind donation, and they're real liberal on the in-kind donation, so we probably wouldn't have to come up with any cash. Full application is due June 1st. So that's coming up here real quick. Award is in August, and funding is in the fall. And this one is to help create a master plan and the implementation strategy that will identify the bigger picture, our hurdles, challenges in development, and opportunities that we can grab onto to make this work for us. We're going to be working with ODOT and the DLCD to, again, make sure that we're not crossing efforts on any of the other grants that we're applying for.
Would that also include, like, tourism and that kind of stuff, which we really haven't been involved in?
Could possibly. Yeah, that's something else that the new member of the Planning Commission is going to be looking into. Is there's some tourism grants that are out there also. Mr. Mayor.
So, and if I'm hearing you right, because one of my concerns, Tammy, and I talked to you about this, is that making sure we're asking from Metro for this pot of money to do this, and then they're going to look and say, wait a minute, you got somebody else doing this. So as long as we...
They're all working together. They're all talking and making sure that we're wording each one to where they work together instead of cross-purposing them.
Do you think the
DLCD
is the first one that should get done? In other words, the zoning, that kind of stuff would kind of impact those other ones.
Right, and that will be a part of the conversation, is the grants, the other grants that we're looking at, and what our vision is for those grants. They'll take that into consideration when they're doing the audit and doing the recommendations. So luckily all these agencies work very well together. Everybody knows each other, and so this will be definitely a cohesive effort between everybody.
Good. And then the only thing I'll add on the Metro grant is that they have suggested that amount be bumped up.
Oh, yeah.
For a full-time
staffer. Yeah.
To implement the project.
Yeah, we talked to Chris.
Yeah, Chris
with
Meyer.
Metro, and he's kind of our, I don't know what you'd call it, our cheerleader for Metro right now. He's really excited and has asked to be on our team for anything Gladstone, and he went to Metro saying, look, these small jurisdictions do not have the staff available to write these grants or to go after these grants and go at all of these meetings, and he convinced them that we should bump up the amount that we're asking for to cover a staff person for that, and it will be allowed.
And specifically the Metro one, one of the reasons why is that it's a huge community outreach and input into that specific plan. So there's going to be open houses and demonstrations and sandwich boards, and there's a lot more labor intensive than just the zoning change one where that's behind the scenes. So that's why he's suggesting they get a full-time staff position to run all of those meetings and open houses and all that stuff. So it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and we're in a very, very good position to get these grants.
Anything?
Any questions?
On C, Tammy?
Yes.
The Transportation and Growth Management Code Assistance Program.
Yes.
There actually is it's not actually a grant or a grant deadline that we need to get things in by?
No, it's an assistance program.
Do we have a plan, and who would be involved in this plan? It looks like we have got to get 3 completed grants written
By
between now and June 12th.
Yes. So this one, the DLCD, I was going to bring up at the next Planning Commission meeting during our work session because it will completely change how we move forward with our code review. And then I would say probably 2, maybe 3 work sessions to really come up with a plan on how we want them to address it because we need to give them the parameters. Bring it to you guys, I would say July or August.
I'm referring to just having the full application due by June 12th.
I don't have any application due for the DLCD.
Okay.
So that one, like I said, it's going to take a couple months to put a plan together that gives them the framework on how they move forward with the audit and the recommendations. And so when Planning Commission comes up with a plan, I'll bring it to you guys so that you can rubber stamp it or tweak it, and then we'll start the auditing process. But I would really like to get that started by the end of the summer so that it's not holding up anything that we're going to be doing with the other grants. Does that answer your question?
No. Who
is going to be doing them?
Who is going to write the 3 grants?
Well,
I'll
be writing Metro Grant.
Okay. Well, that's just what I was curious about was staffing levels to get 3 full grant applications done between now and June 12th.
I'm turning beet red. I'm going to be helping, Dominic will be helping, Jolene will be helping, Gail Curtis will be helping, so we have...
It's figured out.
Yeah, we have
answers
people
it.
that will, yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to help? We're open.
Raise a hand.
Yeah, raise your hand. We would love to have more people.
Look behind you, too.
Yeah, well, luckily, like the TSP grant, there's already been ones written. It's pretty boilerplate, so that one's going to be pretty easy. And same with the Portland Avenue Refinement Plan. There's a couple jurisdictions locally that have done something similar, so that won't be that hard to write. Any more questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, sure.
On this,
Brownie.
Dominic?
Yes, sir.
There's a recommended staff action to provide preliminary approval to continue and proceed forward.
On which one?
On this? Yeah.
On the grant thing?
Yes. So I think we give an approval to continue and proceed forward.
Second.
So the motion by Sickman was to proceed.
We don't need an actual motion, we
Right.
just need...
Approve.
A consensus?
Yes.
All right, I'm all for moving forward.
So am I.
All right?
Go for it.
Okay,
Absolutely.
there you have it. Thank you. Moving on to number 8, payment of accreditation renewal fee to Oregon Accreditation Association.
So, Mr. Mayor, we have Interim Chief Jeff Jolly who's going to address council on this.
In a pinstripe suit.
Thank you, Mr. Stemple. This is ZZ Top song there somewhere. Oh, my goodness. Jeff Jolly, Lieutenant with Gladstone Police Department. You can see the staff report that I prepared, and it's before you. Basically, what we have is an investment of significant amount of time, manpower, both within our agency and outside of our agency, that we've invested into this process. We may have varying opinions as to the significance or importance to our agency, and I've not fully investigated those, but I do know that we have spent, as an agency, a significant amount of resources to get to this point. Because of the impending decision as to the new chief selection that's coming up, I would recommend that we defer to the new chief to see if that figures into his or her plan as to what direction they want to proceed on the accreditation, whether they figure that's a significant factor in their future.
So you're saying now we don't want to approve the payment, or we should wait?
No, he's saying renew it.
But this year, I say we renew it,
Okay.
protect the investment that we've already had, and
Right.
let the new chief evaluate.
All right.
Well, I've got a couple of questions, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the accreditation is from a government agency or a private entity?
I believe it's a private entity that's made up of chiefs of police.
Okay. And then, so, then a second question I have is, has the police department met the goals set out in the accreditation?
It's met the minimum standards with areas identified to improve. By no means are we satisfied that we are done with the process or building upon it. And from my view of it, it's definitely a good baseline to operate in, as most of the agencies here in Clackamas County are accredited. However, it's nothing to just sit on your behind and not continue to develop, because we've got some areas of improvement, obviously.
So which I got a couple others. So according to their website, we're in a self-assessment phase. Do you know what that is?
Yes, we have identified several areas within those, I believe it's 102 criteria, areas that we need to improve in, that we need to move forward and build upon. And regardless or outside of the accreditation process, I'm actively engaged in addressing those deficiencies that we may have.
Then, I guess probably the last question I have is, do we need a piece of paper? Well, actually, I have two questions. Before I get to the second, I just thought of first. Where is the certificate?
Let me defer to that. Is it downstairs? It's downstairs.
In the lobby?
It's not been hung up.
Oh, okay.
It's hard to drive nails into these walls.
Well,
there's a fear factor.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. So, then my last question is, do we need to pay $1,050 for a piece of paper that says that we need to improve and we need to motivate our troops to improve?
I think it's a baseline standard. If you want that standard to stick by and to improve upon, it's very subjective as to what you feel is important. My wife mentioned to me several times, do you need a degree in college and a piece of paper on the wall? I don't know. I am not the subject matter expert when it comes to the accreditation process, and it's something, should I remain in this position, I would fully evaluate. I don't want to be wasteful, but at the same time, I don't want to make a quick decision.
And that brings up, sorry, another question.
You only had two questions. That was questions ago.
I know. The plan is for this to come out of dues and subscriptions, speaking of financial, and it's budgeted for $4,500 is the line item. And granted, it's within the police department, and there's a lot of moving around. It's currently at $855 is what's in there. Earlier we authorized you to switch to Lexapol, which is, I was going to ask, is that an annual fee of the $54.50?
Yes.
So there's something we might want to do is up that, because currently we approved last night that line item be $4,500.
Point taken.
So my second question, or not really question, but comment, is we're now in the hole of about $4,700 on that line item, and adding this is going to make it about $5,800. So who's watching our dollars?
We are.
So I know.
Good
That's
point.
it, yeah, I am. So, and I'm hoping that you are too.
I certainly will be.
I've got one question, Jeff.
Yes, sir.
How do you know, or could you tell us, how the department, the people that made this happen, feel about the whole accreditation idea?
Well, that's one area of weakness that I think we've not addressed. The people that were involved in the process were very involved, very knowledgeable, worked very hard and diligently to make this thing happen over a long period of time. We did not do a good job integrating this concept and conveying the importance to our people. We just didn't.
So that was just 2 or 3 people that were involved in this within the department?
More than that.
There were various people tasked at different times with providing information and assignments, but going back to Councilor Merceau's question, when it comes to getting down to the working guy down at the street level, we didn't do a good job educating them and stressing the importance and what it means to us and why these standards are important to hold up to. So.
And the plan is to do what?
Well, the plan now is to assess where we go with the new chief and see what he or she feels is important and if this fits into their plan. But in the meantime, as with some other things, Lexpol policy, our public policy on policing, we need to do a much better job at integrating that and connecting the dots with our people that are out there doing the work. So we're going to make that a goal this year.
Well, like any certification process, it's a working process. You
Yes,
start from zero and you improve, and it is a method improved. So I support the program as long as the department is behind it and believes it will do better.
I absolutely agree with you, and if it's something, you know, if it's felt that we should go ahead and continue with this work and build upon it, then we're going to support it 100%. We're going to live it in our daily lives, you know, whether it's whatever policies we're adopting or programs we're doing, we're going to make sure that that's communicated up and down the chain. So that's my commitment to you, that if it's something that we decide is just of value to our department, we'll ensure that everybody's on board and knowledgeable about it. So.
Thank you.
You've mentioned a couple of times how intensive and how expensive this was to get the accreditation. Would you even hazard an estimated guess at the total costs involved?
Well, I don't have the exact hours that were put into it. I don't have that information available off the top of my head. I believe Chief Pride worked on it for some time before Maria Aiken, the project manager, took over. I don't know how you quantify the inputs from outside agencies. If that's something that you know, we could get an estimate on something.
No, I was just, I mean, everybody's idea of what a lot is, and so I was just kind of trying to get some sort of qualification, 500 hours or 5 hours,
right.
$10,000 or $100,000.
You'd want to venture a guess just off the top of your head.
Okay. And so we're looking at just maintaining that for another year to give a new chief, once he's hired, the opportunity to have this available to him.
Yes.
If we approve it. Okay.
To consider whether it fits into his or her plans.
Okay.
And
That's
just
all
to
I have.
clarify, we're not going to spend another 400 or 500
Right, no,
hours.
no.
The work's been done. It's just kind of maintaining it.
Right.
And then probably it also helps you whenever you go out for grants and stuff. I would think that having that when you go to grants is better than not having it.
I think
I'm
it
sure
is,
that's
you know.
why a lot of the fire districts and stuff, they do that, because then they can go to grants and say, and we're an accredited fire agency and you are an accredited police agency. So I think there's a lot of pluses to keeping it.
Thank you.
I think this is a good thing. We're changing the culture on the street between the officers and the community, and I'm hearing about this, and I'm proud of them because this new program is being recognized. And if it's okay with you guys, I'll make a motion.
I don't think, or this is another one where we don't need a motion, we just need a consensus.
Okay, well, I need motion to approve the payment of the accreditation renewal fee for the Oregon Accreditation Association.
Second.
So we're going motion and second?
Yeah.
Okay. Len motioned and Sickman seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
That's it?
Thank you.
I think I might as well stay up here. I think the next one's...
Oh, you're it. Code enforcement update.
Yeah. You're just going to hog the mic tonight, aren't you?
Kind of liking this.
You're looking good.
It's working.
Again, you have before you staff report on the code enforcement update. As you know, the history's been kind of reactive. We've been kind of sheepish on what we've been doing out in the community, And it's kind of hard to stand by when you see people like Tammy Stemple that are stepping up and trying to get grants and do things to improve our community. And we want to be an equal partner in that. So I've really made an effort for us to change our approach to code enforcement. And we're going to do everything we possibly can to make sure that the livability and the standards of our community are high. And we're going to do that through code enforcement. Now, that's a big task. It's a big turnaround. There's a lot of momentum that needs to be changed downstairs, and I think we've made some significant headway. I've outlined some things here that we're doing to improve that, making citizen complaints and tracking much easier. Rather than hiring additional people and spending more taxpayer money, we're going to use existing people. The executive assistant, Maria Aiken's, going to head that up, and a direct phone number for code complaints, emails, online complaint forms will all come into her, and she'll track the outgoing and ensure that we have a resolution. So there's a customer service aspect to this also. We're going to make sure that, once a call comes in or a online complaint, it just doesn't get lost, that there's actually a resolution to it in a timely manner, and that people that report these things have contact back. I've heard several comments from the counselors about people not getting feedback after the police deal with them. That's a whole other thing that I look to change, but part of the aspect of this code enforcement, we're going to make sure the customer service aspect of it's there too. So these are just some of the things, and like I said, we're going to head that up with the executive assistant and try to work with the limited number of hours our code enforcement person has. And I really want to make a go at this without hiring more people, using the existing resources we have.
Can you use volunteers to feed some of that information back, or on phone calls, say, are you pleased with what has happened, or is it still incomplete?
If it gets to the point where it's overwhelming, we could probably look at something like that.
Yeah.
Maria's got a big workload as it is, but she's willing to step up and take this on, and this is going to be a big thing, and it's an important thing. And
we had a lot of volunteers at one time, a few years back, and we kind of lost that portion of it. There's definitely a need for them.
Well, I think we've got some good momentum. If anyone drives up Oakfield tonight, I think you'll see a clean yard. And maybe if you drive up Arlington, and within the next couple of weeks, you'll probably see a clean storefront. So, we're trying to do our part. We're trying to be an equal partner. I mean, the enthusiasm and the people of the community expect it, and so we're going to try to be responsive to that.
Good job.
Yeah, the livability is important, and I really appreciate the fact that you're taking this seriously, and just the things that have happened in the past month, past weeks or so are very positive, and looking forward to seeing that continue. Thank you very much.
You bet. Yeah. Thank you.
In case it isn't said, I want to make sure that...
That's why he wore the suit.
You also, I believe, have got the full support of the council in moving forward with
Absolutely.
this. So,
and that's important, because I think we've been a little gun shy. So that's good to know, and Sean's very appreciative of that support. So thank you.
I think that Sean, too, if we're seeing the improvement, I tried to see him today, but he was not available, but let him know that, hey, we're seeing this improvement, and give him an attaboy once in a while.
Absolutely.
It'll make him feel good about it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, moving to number 11 on our list, Brown and Caldwell Agreement, Change Order Number 4, Stormwater Permit.
And I don't understand any of
Right, Mr. Mayor, City Council, as discussed during our last Brown and Caldwell conversation way back regarding the master plan, we also have a contract with Brown and Caldwell to perform services related to our stormwater permit. There are a couple deadlines that are coming up that weren't on our radar screen, and that's why we amended the agenda to get this on this meeting. What we're requesting is that we're requesting City Council authorize a change order, would be the fourth change order to this contract, in order to meet our permit requirements. what would be completed is a hydro modification assessment, a retrofit plan summary, and a public education effectiveness evaluation. Some of those items we partner with other co-permittees within Clackamas County. The stormwater permit isn't just for Gladstone, it's for all of the other jurisdictions within Clackamas County. The reason I think it's important to stick with Brown and Caldwell is that they represent all of the other jurisdictions. We've been able to realize some cost savings over the years because of that. It's more of a team approach. So I'm encouraging council to authorize this change order. Cost to the city is, I believe, $28,000. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
So this is like change order number 4 for them, or 5, or what is it?
It's change order number 4. The original contract was with a company named URS. The person that was in charge of our permit there, Angela, used to be Brown, now it's Angela Whalen, has, during the last few years, changed companies to Brown and Caldwell. The co-permittees seemed to go with Angela because she was so knowledgeable about the stormwater issues within this region. So at that time, we switched over the contract. URS agreed to sign it over to Brown and Caldwell, and we started moving forward with Brown and Caldwell. Some of the reason for some of the change orders in the past is that we were realizing a certain amount of savings that we didn't expect. Some of them were to change the scope. As we got further along in it, we decided to add some dollars to the contract to continue the working effort, and that's what we're asking tonight.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I have no clue as to what this says or what they're doing. I'm just hoping to help, Pete, that you got this figured out.
Well, and that's part of the problem. Most of the other jurisdictions have a staff person that is assigned, maybe not full-time, but at least part-time, to stormwater permits. The annual report we have to do is pretty intense. We're logging how much in street sweeping, how much material we bring up. When we're clearing culverts, we're logging that. We're also required to inspect stormwater facilities on private property and require them to perform annual maintenance reports. So it is pretty in-depth, and we rely heavily on Brown and Caldwell for this effort. In the past, they've produced guidebooks for us, so we have checklists of help staff, work through it and meet the parameters of the permit.
You mentioned in here that there was an economic impact because they were working with a few. Okay, so our portion would be less.
Right.
Approximately, what is that? What would it be if we just went out to somebody else and?
Well, it's a little hard to measure.
Just a ballpark.
Well, are we talking over the course of this contract? I would estimate, and this is my estimate, because we don't track, I would guess we've saved maybe $70,000 over the last 5 years by combining with the other jurisdictions. And it goes on beyond just Brown and Caldwell. For some of our stormwater testing, we rely on Clackamas County to take samples because they have jurisdictions that abut our city. And some of the education efforts that go on are actually countywide. That relieves us from having to do those things in-house. So, that's the best estimate I can put forward.
Okay. let me ask it a little bit different. I
Okay.
think I got the gist of it, okay?
Sure.
We're saving money by using them in your estimation. If we went to somebody else and said, please do the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
okay, approximately how much would it cost versus 28,000?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It would be more because a lot of the work they've already done, whoever we hire would have to come in and review those reports and mine that data to complete these future tasks. So it would be more than 28,000, but I really can't venture a guess as to what that would be.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Maybe I'm just not quite reading this. I'm almost in the same boat as Dominic on this. But this is calling for change order number 4. This is a change order number 4 to the 2005 contract. So this is more just, you're calling it a change order, but I'm looking at it more as it's a renewal of the existing contract with a few changes in the scope of work.
Right. So the existing contract stays in place. It's more of an amendment. So we're adding to the scope of work, and we're adding to the contract amount. So those are the changes that are happening.
So there's basically been 4 renewals since 2005.
Correct.
Okay.
My understanding also, Pat, just to throw this in from talking with David, who has a little bit more background on this particular contract, is that some of this work has to be done to meet state and EPA guidelines. And, obviously Gladstone just doesn't have the staff to do it, which is why you have hired a consultant. So I don't know. Anyway, it is kind of confusing when it says change order.
Anything else? I will entertain a motion to authorize Pete to execute the change order.
So moved.
Wow. Motion by Councilor McMahon, seconded by Councilor Nelson. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
All right. Moving on to item number 10, City Administrator Contract.
Okay, I would like to make a motion. I move that the city not renew the city administrator's contract that ends on June 30th, 2015, and that we authorize the mayor to send an official written notice.
Second.
So the motion was made by Councilor Nelson not to renew the city administrator's contract, and it was seconded by Councilor Sickman. Jolene, can you do roll call vote, please? Discussion, I'm sorry. Caught myself. Discussion.
Just to clarify, you were going to share what yes means, just so...
Well, first I was going to recommend there be some discussion, just to be on the safe side. A second, a yes vote. The motion has been to not renew. A yes vote means that as of June 30th, 2015, Mr. Boyce would no longer be the city administrator. So a yes vote ends the contract on its June 30th deadline.
So now, discussion? No discussion? Okay, Jolene, can you do a roll call vote then?
Councilor Nelson?
Yes.
Councilor Mercero?
Yes.
Councilor Johnson?
Yes.
Councilor Sickman?
Yes.
Councilor McMahon?
Yes.
Councilor Reisner?
Yes.
Yes. All right, any business from the council? No business from the council?
Well, coffee with the counselor is still going on. It has, the number of participants has slowed down a little bit, as we expected. We are coming up on 6 months, so it's kind of time to reevaluate and see if we want to continue I think we should, but maybe for a later date have some discussion and see if there's what's working, what isn't, and if we want to make any changes to it. That's all I got.
Okay, I've got the speed trailer out now. It's going to be out for several weeks. We're going to record some speeds out there so that we can turn it into the Traffic Safety Commission, and they can look and see what's happening on the streets. It'll be out for 2 or 3 days at a time and then in for recharging, and then we'll run there's a little module in it now that I plugged in that'll keep track of the speed during the day, and then we'll plug that into the computer and come out with a computer sheet for traffic safety. So you'll see it sitting around the city in different areas for a couple of days at a time.
Will we be able to get hold of that data then, to see it?
To get the information?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sergeant Lawrence is going to run that on his computer, and then there'll be a computer sheet come out, and I'll get that for you.
It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
It is interesting to see.
Well, I gave everybody a bit of reading material. This book is a book that I've found to be very effective, and whether it's in business, political, personal life, whatever, I suggest you read it. It starts out, I'll give you a little key, it starts out with some ideas of the 7. Be proactive, which I believe the council agrees with. Begin with the end in mind, which makes sense before you do something, and put first things first. And it goes on, I suggest you read it. It is part of my mission statement. It came out of that book, so welcome.
Last week, Kim, Tom, Pete, and I met with Oregon City, some Oregon City folks, including Lance Powelson, who's hiding in the back. We had some good discussions on the Tri-City governance issues, and we're working a little bit on some ideas for what a charter for Tri-City governance might look like if it were no longer with the county. Unfortunately, Oregon City is still way ahead of us on this issue, and we're still playing catch-up, and you're going to hear more about that, and I'll provide a list at a future meeting. We still have not met with Sissel. My direction to Pete was to wait until after the budget was done before we schedule that meeting. So I will work here in the next week or so to get a meeting scheduled with Sissel and try and get answers to some of the questions that I brought up previously. So that process continues on, not nearly as fast as Oregon City would like, and we're trying to catch up, Lance. We're going to have to take some time on this, but it moves forward. I'll keep you updated as I know more. Thanks.
Working with a couple of citizens about maybe increasing some tourism activities and things in the future. So try to get more people to visit our city and have some fun.
No. Tim, you already went?
I'm done.
I don't have anything. Thanks everybody for coming. Appreciate everybody showing up. It's encouraging. And this meeting is adjourned at 7:45 p.m.